So it's the 1st of March 2025. Yesterday, the 28th of February 2025, I rang a solicitor that I used called Kellogg's. Now, I was charged with a complete fabricated charge by a lady police officer called Officer Turner from Blackburn Greenbank Police Station. She came to my home with a picture of a leg. Yep, just a part of an extremely large white person's leg. Now, she said that was a 6-year-old Asian girl that my dog had bit. The first solicitor I went to was Forbes, who sent that paperwork off to a dog specialist, who came back with the information that it wasn't an injury from a dog. Why was it an old scabbed injury? Why was it just a picture of a leg? Why was there no time, no date, no face on it? All the same questions as I asked. So basically it was a complete setup by the police, but this was only brought to my attention 2 weeks after I went in the local shop and the Asian guy asked me, had my dog bit somebody? I said no, why? And he said they was discussing it in the local mosque in Blackburn. So 2 weeks after that, then Officer Turner turns up with his piece of paper with this bite, well, alleged bite on it of a piece of a leg. It was not submissible evidence. So I went through Forbes. Obviously it was proven through the first solicitor to be a complete fabrication of evidence, but it still went on. It went through magistrates court. Forbes started lying, changing the story, supporting the police to get me charged, because they had to remove this dog to start going in my house and doing what they've been doing. Now they've set me up on several false charges, just as a defamation of character, just to make me look bad and make people support them in what they're doing. Now they've charged me with hitting a 16-year-old girl, which was nothing more than a picture of a cold sore that they brought to me in court. Now Jonathan Taylor from Farley Solicitors actually got me to plead guilty to this just to get me out of prison. He lied to the judge, saying I'd been on remand 2 weeks when I'd been on remand nearly 3 months. And he just completely lied and set me up in court, basically. Now, I don't really understand why this is all being done. Apart from it's all started when Carl Haslam from Blackburn PPU came round to my house and he said, we'll give you a gypsy warning. And it was only a few months after I split up with a girl called Nadia Butt, who I think I've got a daughter with. And her brother is an inspector in the police, Tarek Butt. Now he was an inspector in Manchester Police. And I was told a couple of years ago, whilst he was an inspector in Manchester Police, he was in touch with a guy called Lloyd Alley. Now, I've had massive amount of corruption done to me. I've been jailed on complete false fabricated evidence and charges that have been proven in the court of law to be complete fabricated false charges. Yet again, it's been pushed through. Now I believe this is all being done because my mum stood for the BNP in Blackburn. Now look what they're doing to Tommy Robinson. That just shows you done it. But I have been completely set up. The first thing was take all my voice away. So they set me up with a sex offence. I had a lady pushing her 14-year-old daughter onto me. The day of my dad's funeral, I went to her house to get drugs, actually, I'll admit. And the daughter was there. I knocked on the door the first time. The daughter answered the door with a pair of jeans on, a can of lager. Anyway, the mother had the heroin, but she didn't have the diazepam tablets, which my cousin wanted. So we went away and she said she'd ring us back when she got the tablets. She rung us back 20 minutes later, half an hour. I knocked on the door. The young girl had got changed. She had a miniskirt on, a boob tube. She'd done all her hair. Anyway, when I left the house, the mother kept ringing me saying, would I take her out, blah, blah, blah. And then she started bringing her to the pub. Anyway, that went on for quite a while. She was coming to the pub every Friday afternoon. I used to finish work at 12 o'clock on a Friday and go to the Sun pub. And she started turning up outside the pub, coming in the pub, getting drinks, no problem getting served. But this was the setup. So I ended up seeing her after a bit. I had no idea of her age until I'd been with her a few months and I took her to a funeral of one of my friends. A couple of weeks after that, my mate rung me. He said, how old's that girl you brought to the funeral? I said, she's 17. He said, I don't think she is, mate. I said, I'm doing some work on Darwinvale School. I'm sure she's walked past me. So anyway, I rang her up and I asked her, I said, listen, you're going to get me in a lot of trouble. If you're not 17, you need to tell me the truth. She turned up at my factory at 4 o'clock in a school uniform, blackmailing me, saying she'd make my life a misery if I split up with her. At one point I did actually ring the police. I was about to tell them that this young girl I'd slept with and she wouldn't leave me alone. She was blackmailing me. I was having to buy her stuff on a Friday afternoon and what have you. Anyway, the mother started, £500 we were going to the police. Next thing, sign your mortgage over. Anyway, I was set up on this sex offence, so that's ruined me. What's the best way to ruin a man? Get him charged with a sex offence. That takes all your rights away. Nobody wants to know you. You've no rights. You've no rights in society. Nobody will help you. So that was the first thing to do in 2008. Now in 2008, I rented my flat out to a girl called Gillian Disley, who was a friend of my sister's. When I got out of prison for this sex offence, within 2 weeks I moved in with a girl called Nadia, but she had a 5-year-old son, and I moved in and my bedroom overlooked Rowley Primary School and Nursery School, which I thought was very strange after just getting out of a sex offence. But what's even stranger, the girl I've moved in with was not only the next door neighbour of the girl I've just been to prison for, her mother, but she was the best friend of the mother. And she knew everything that had gone on. She knew I'd been set up. She said she was in the flat when they was talking about me, saying I've got a nice flat and a good job, I'll have fuck all by the time they finish with me. So that was told to me by Nadia. Nadia, the next door neighbour, and the mother's best friend of the girl I've just been to prison for. Very strange. Now her brother is an inspector in the police. So when I was in prison for that, Gillian Disley was renting my flat. When I got out of prison, I went back to live in the flat. Gillian Disley turned up at my flat one day. She came in, she started telling me things. That the next door neighbour at number 3 had told her when she got friendly with him, was drinking with him, that they'd been trying to drive me out that flat since the day they'd moved in. So they moved in that flat just to drive me out because they want that land. They own the flat, they own the house next door, and I believe they've bought the flat underneath me. But they want my flat and they want that land. Now they've took half my garden. When I was in prison on these false charges, they've moved the fence and they've put a fence in front of my front door, which stops anybody being seen entering my flat. Now for the last 10 years I've had people coming in my flat, damaging everything, taking everything, and it's the police. Now, I've had other charges set up. I was set up off Blackburn Public Protection Unit. A guy called Carl Haslam turned up at my flat, and a police officer, and he arrested me for having 5 14-year-old girls on a Facebook account. Put me straight in prison. I was brought out of prison 5 separate times back to Blackburn Magistrates. First of all, I was charged with 5 offences. They said, plead guilty to 4, we'll drop 1. Nope. Back to prison. The governor at Preston Prison met me at reception. Told me I wasn't going on a vulnerable person's wing, that I was completely capable of looking after myself on a normal location. So they put me on normal location and they put me in the tailor's workshop where everybody's got access to massive scissors for cutting material. So I'm a sex offender with a ex-pedo charge, to put it bluntly. On the normal side of the prison, I'm working in the tailor's shop. Anyway, every time I appeared in court, it was all over the Lancashire Evening Telegraph, just to make sure everybody knew what I was in the prison for and what I was on the wing for. Anyway, first of all there was 5 charges, then there was 4. Went back to the prison, pled not guilty. Brought back out, plead guilty to 3 charges. No, back to prison, back out, plead guilty to 2. No, back to prison, back out to Blackburn Magistrates. It got down to 1 charge. When it was 1 charge, my solicitor, then and then only, when he could have done it the first time I appeared in court, 3 months earlier, tried making a Facebook account in the court. You couldn't be on Facebook at that age, at that time. You could not be on Facebook at 15 years old. You had to be 16 to be on Facebook at that time. You're telling me Blackburn Public Protection Unit did not know that you had to be 16 by law to make a Facebook account? The family that set me up on these offences are a well-known drug dealing family. Now, they must have set these accounts up and then changed the date of births. But the police obviously knew it, so it was a complete setup from day one, for some reason. So that was proved in the court. After 5 separate appearances in court, that was proven. So the police are setting me up big time, yeah? Because that was proven after 5 separate appearances at Blackburn Magistrates Court. And on the last appearance, then my solicitor made the account, which they could have done the first time. He could have done that the first time I entered court. Why didn't he do it the first time? Why did he only do it after the 5th appearance in court and me being taken back to prison and having people terrorise me, coming in my cell with knives, everybody on the wing looking to do me in, people in the workshop all working in, looking for an opportunity to stab me up. Basically, this offence and this prison sentence was made to terrorise me into pleading guilty to something I haven't done. And it was proven in their own court of law to be a complete set-up. So why aren't these police officers being charged? This is what I don't understand. It's been proven now, 2 separate offences, one of the dog biting the Asian kid, which never happened. False doctors' reports made, false pictures made, police officers come into my house with false documentation, and then the 5 Facebook accounts proven in a court of law to be complete fabricated evidence, complete fabricated charges. None of them have been charged. Now I have had massive problems with the police, massive problems. I've been attacked on several occasions. It was only 12 months ago when I went into the town centre and I went to a shop where I went regularly, and the guy in the shop told me to use a certain machine to pay. I put my money in that shop and that machine, and it was broken, the machine. He then turned around and said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you it's broken, that." But he'd already directed me to put my money in that exact machine. At the door was 2 security officers. Well, one was an undercover police officer and one was a security guard from the Blackburn Town Centre. Now, as soon as I said, "I know why you've done that," because they was watching me and they was waiting for me to say something, they flew straight over to me, straight in my face. One of the security guards said, "I'll knock you out." I said, "No, you fucking won't." Anyway, I knew I was on a loser. They said, "Leave the town centre." So I started leaving the town centre, and as I was walking out, he was constantly jabbing me in the back of my kidneys, trying to provoke a reaction. After the 5th or 6th jab, I did turn around and I went to grab him, but I didn't actually grab him. But then it started. They whizzed me against a shop window. Old woman walking past, absolutely terrified. How they didn't push me through that shop window, I will never know. Anyway, the police officer then dragged me to the floor, kneeing me, punching me in the face. They broke my nose. They get me on the floor, and he puts his full body weight on my temple. I thought my head was going to explode. Then I'm arrested for assault. But this is the best bit. The security guard, all the time, he's walking round strangling himself. He made his neck look so red that when the police brought the picture in the interview, they brought a black and white picture in because he was a ginger-headed guy, bald head, and he'd made his neck look so red. You wouldn't have done that kind of fucking damage to his neck if you'd have had hold of him with 2 hands for 20 minutes strangling him. So I'm charged with assault. Anyway, that gets dropped. Nothing happens to that. And that was December 2024, about 2 weeks before Christmas. 6 months later, I've seen my ex-girlfriend outside Aldi. Spoke to her for a bit. She's admitted that the assault occurred because of her boyfriend's auntie being in charge of the security in the Blackburn Town Centre, and all the rest of the fabricated charges by the police have been done because of her brother, who is an inspector in the police, Tarek Butt, and who is training police officers in Saudi Arabia now, Qatar. He's training the police over there. So you can imagine the kind of people he's in touch with. But the police are going in my home every single time I go out and just damaging everything I own. Absolutely everything. They've damaged all my windows, all my doors, the lot. Now, they've set me up to murder me quite a few times now. One time I was called to an appointment at the community drug team. Whilst I was at that appointment, there was an extra fuse box fitted inside my home. I got home to that appointment to my fuse box door being opened. I opened my door for the fuse box and there was an extra fuse box. There was now 2 fuse boxes in there. All the electrics on the original fuse box had all been reversed, where on was off and off was on. After about 3 or 4 weeks of being deprived of sleep, there was going in downstairs every morning. They sent the old lady who lived downstairs on a Caribbean cruise whilst they were doing this. She actually told me when they let me out of the mental health hospital. But anyway, they was going downstairs every morning. I heard him open the fuse box door in the flat underneath me. And I couldn't sleep. They was putting stuff in my flat that was giving off this mad smell. I was finding them connected to all electric devices in my flat. But I could not sleep. They damaged all my windows. There was driving cars past with them really loud exhausts every 5 minutes. There's 1-inch gaps all around my windows, so it just sounds like there's no windows in there. But they made it impossible to sleep. So for 2 weeks I had no sleep at all. Over 2 weeks. I was eventually coaxed into cutting through that electric main. Now that electric main should have cut all the power off on the street. But it didn't. It didn't even cut the power off from the flat underneath. There'd been a massive hole smashed in my living room floor and the power main had been redirected. But it blew all the skin off my hands. Now it should have killed me and it should have done a bit more damage than that, but luckily it didn't. Somebody's looking after me up there, the Lord. Anyway, me being the good citizen that I am, I've gone downstairs to check that the old lady's alright and that she's got power still. When I've knocked on the door, the police have come to the door. They've arrested me. They've had an electrician with them who's removed this fuse box. They've arrested me and put me in a mental health hospital. So I'm in the mental health hospital now. But I'm put in a room where the automatic door makes the sound like it locks, but it doesn't actually lock. It's free for anybody to walk into. Right? So this is the next setup. There's a security CCTV camera on the hallway. It's behind a mirror ball. On that mirror ball, there had been a sticker placed of a bluebird. Wherever you looked on that hallway, that sticker covered the door to my room. So I'm in a room where the automatic door doesn't lock, but makes a sound, and there's a sticker placed on the CCTV camera that blocks off my door. Who is writing this stuff off? Who is giving people the authority to do this? Who's got the power to set people up like this and have them murdered in mental health hospitals? Anyway, I unbelievably got thrown out the mental health hospital for smoking a cigar in the TV room. They was not going to let me out that mental health hospital for love nor money, but this angel from above opened the door and made me leave. So I had to go back to a flat where there was no electricity, but luckily my sister let me live at her house. And also, my sister is facing these kind of problems. My sister owns her own property like me, she lives alone, and she's also having every single item in her house damaged. Now I've investigated a bit on Google Earth and Google Maps, and my address and my sister's address are the only 2 addresses in England that have had all the addresses on the streets changed, and our addresses are under different numbers. Now this has been done deliberately. This has been done to hide all the corruption that's being done from her addresses and her properties. Now that isn't it. There's more. So that's the mental health hospital they set me up to be murdered in. My electricity box set me up, deprived me of sleep for weeks to coax me to cut through an electricity cable. But there's more. Only 5 weeks ago, I was seriously injured by being knocked off my bicycle on a roundabout after being followed around Morrison's supermarket, and a car deliberately sped up, drove through a junction and hit me at around 40 miles an hour when I ran my BMX. The police was there. They would not come over to a roundabout where 3 cars were pulled up and everybody was stood around the cars. But the police officers were already there and they did not come over. They would not come over no matter how much I waved and barracked and coaxed them over. They would not come to that accident scene. As I regained consciousness, I looked up and I saw an ambulance speed off so fast there was fucking smoke coming off the back wheels. They did not expect me to be getting up off that floor. Eventually, the cars left the scene, but an English guy drove after the Asian guy who drove through the junction and knocked me off, and he stopped him, luckily. As I was walking off, then the police came over and asked what happened. Now, this was a complete setup to try and murder me, yet again, by knocking me off my bike. That's the third setup. Oh, and there's more. I was put on community service when this apparent dog bite happened on this 6-year-old Asian girl. And even though I've got a convicted sex offence, I was put on a children's adventure park 20 minutes outside of Accrington in Blackburn. Now, this weren't just an adventure park where people just go and play on the swings and that. It was a camp where children stop over for a week and do activities. Little kids, girl guides and brownies. I told the community service officer, I'm not supposed to be working on something like this. I've got a convicted sex offence. What did he do? He took all the rest of the lads off and left me working there on my own. So I gets home from there one day. They put me miles out of my hometown, make sure they've got enough time to get out of my flat before I get home. And the old lady downstairs stops me one day and she says, are you having some work done? No, but I fucking had. People had been in my house and they knocked a brick out my chimney in my attic and they blocked all my existing chimney breast up with the insulation from the floor. Now there'd been a brand new flue fitted from my chimney breast to my roof. The next day, Twin Valley came round and went on my roof. The next day to that, somebody parked up outside my flat at night and started beeping. Beep, 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 beep. Next thing I heard a massive smash. I thought somebody had put a brick through one of my windows. Came back into the living room. My eyes was all burning and I couldn't breathe. My flat had filled up with ammonia. They put a flue on my fucking chimney, blocked the existing chimney off and smashed a bottle of ammonia in my flue remotely. Now I went to open the window. Somebody had put 4 big screws through the window frame. Yep, 4 big screws through the window frame. I went and got a screwdriver, started unscrewing them. The police turned up outside looking up at me. One police guy in a car looking directly at me on his radio as I'm unscrewing these screws on the window. So, there's now 4 big fucking screw holes through my window frame. But when I was put in the mental health hospital, that window frame was completely changed. Now my mother used to go to my house and clean up. So what had happened, they've had a PCSO go into my mum's house and sitting in with my mum, befriending her, pretending to be a friend, pretending to be helpful. The only reason he was at my mother's house was to make sure my mother didn't go down to my flat whilst this work was being done. Whilst they've had me in the mental health hospital, all the brickwork at the back of my kitchen window has all been taken out. There's all brand new brickwork in my kitchen window, where they've redirected my gas pipes and they've redirected my hot water into the flat downstairs, because I had to cut through that flue to stop that ammonia filling up in my living room with a grinder that was very kindly left for me in the flat. But my mother went down to my house, an 80-year-old woman, and they set my mother up, because my mother stood for the BNP in Blackburn. So my mother was set up. She was cleaning my flat and she was met by 2 bailiffs who demanded £1,200 in cash for council tax. 1, I was up to date with my council tax. 2, I was in prison, so I was exempt from council tax. But my mother, being the vulnerable old lady she was, paid them £1,200 in cash. She was completely set up by the police. Completely set up. An 80-year-old woman for £1,200 cash. My mother, I know the kind of woman she was, she would have been terrified. 2 big burly security guards, bailiffs, demanding money. And she paid it in cash. £1,200 that she did not owe, we did not owe. But not only that, couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I saved £900 up in my gas account. The next thing, I received a bill for £7. So where's all the £900 gone? So I rung up the British Gas Company and said, I had £900 saved up in my account. You took every penny and sent me a bill for £7. They sent me an amended bill going back 2 years, and they'd amended it to take £30, £40 off each month to make up to this £900. But I paid every penny up because I had a guy coming reading my meter. Every 3 months, he read my meter, I was up to date with my money. So who is getting this done? Who's giving people the orders to do things like this to me? To kill me? To defraud my accounts? Now, I had a bank account with a credit card, £3,000 limit. I got a letter. The credit card had gone over the limit by £1,500. This was in 2018, 2017. TSB, Baswell, Blackburn branch. I hadn't even spent that money, but I paid the £1,500 off and I got it back into credit. I got another letter the week after. It went over again, £1,500. I couldn't get through to him off my phone. I was being put in queues for hours. Passed to one person for an hour, waiting another hour, passed to another person, then the call would drop. So I went down to the TSB bank at Blaswell, and the police are everywhere, just turning up everywhere. You can tell them. They think you don't know, but you know, you can tell, you know what they are. They think you don't know, but you do. Anyway, the TSB bank at Baswell defrauded my credit card. £3,000 limit went over the limit by £1,500. 5 separate times. So, I went down to the bank and I spoke to him from the bank. I paid the £1,500 off. And I said, can you make sure this credit card doesn't go over the limit again? Well, I've paid it off to the £3,000 limit. Can you make sure it doesn't go over the limit again? I haven't got the money to pay it. But it did. It went over the limit again. It went over the limit 5 separate times by £1,500, even though I hadn't spent a penny. And then I ordered a statement. I got a 20-page statement where every payment was made on an American Express card. I've never had an American Express card. There was no times, no dates of any of the transactions. The bank manager was absolutely baffled. This was the TSB bank at Baswell, Blackburn, Lancashire. He was absolutely baffled and he was totally embarrassed, was the bank manager. So, there's a roundup of what I've had to put up with the last 9 years, since I've split up with a girl whose brother's an inspector in the police, and since my mum stood up for the British National Party in Blackburn, Lancashire. Ian Hindle. One day I'll get to the end of it, but I can't believe how corrupt our police have become and how they are targeting people for being patriots. I'm not a racist, I'm a patriot, but I'm being targeted because I am a patriot. And people are entering my flat daily and they are trying to drive me out my property. Now, the next door neighbour at number 3 has took a massive amount of my garden. My deeds have been amended by Swin Valley Homes Blackburn. I've sent all the information to them, the proof of this amended deed, but they've all been deleted. There's been a brand new telegraph pole put behind my flat only 3 weeks ago. So obviously on that telegraph pole, on that board, there would have been some proof. So they've had to get rid of it. All court documents have been destroyed before they should have been destroyed on the dog bite case that was brought up 7 years ago. Well, 5 years ago actually. And they shouldn't have been destroyed because it's not even been 6 years actually. It was 2019. But they've all been destroyed. Now they've been destroyed for a reason, and this is to cover up the massive amount of corruption. Now I've got the police going in my flat every single time I leave my property. I've rung up over 56 times to report people going in my flat, and there has been a CCTV camera right across the road which would show whoever is going in my flat. Now, the police have not been out once. They just keep saying, oh, is your mental health alright? Have you seen your mental health worker? As soon as I mentioned on 101, well, it's funny you're not coming down whilst the CCTV camera's pointing on my flat. That CCTV camera was removed within 12 hours of me reporting on 101 that there is a CCTV camera that will show whoever is entering my property entering. I came out the next day and there was an engineer up a ladder that completely removed the camera. So, who is going to help me? I can't believe that the police are doing this and the solicitors are backing them up. Who is orchestrating it? There has to be somebody in a very high position that is orchestrating it and is corrupting the police. Obviously they're getting a nice little backhander. The trouble is with the police want to be like the criminals now. They go around, they see how the criminals are living and they want to be like them. And the police are just corrupt. They're not fit to serve, half of them. Look at the state of them. You know, what happened to 6'2" boys in blue? Yeah. Now they're 5'1", 15 stone, absolutely fucking useless. But anyway, I'm signing off now, but that is what is happening to me on a daily basis. And it's being done from Greenbank Police Station, Lancashire, Blackburn.